The story starts with the girl who lacks hope for the future, observing that adults often appear discontent, reminiscing about better times and struggling to have fun. She finds no adults for guidance or relatability, thinking that only parents and teachers are close to students. However, there's one exception, a particular adult, the school janitor, Fushimi Nao, who consistently greets her with a smile, regardless of her late arrival, becoming the sole adult figure she feels a connection with at school. The girl's name is Ikuta Mana. She's a third-year student and exchanges greetings with the school janitor, who warmly acknowledges her presence. They briefly discuss a possible new drink from a cafe. However, upon Akuta's entry into her classroom, her teacher Koba erupts in anger, scolding her for her habitual lateness and lack of focus. He warns her about the potential consequences of her actions, emphasizing the importance of exam preparation, particularly with the exams drawing near. Despite Koba's escalating frustration and attempts to get a response from her, she remains unresponsive, prompting the teacher to demand her attention more forcefully. Meanwhile, the janitor laughs, seeing the interaction from outside. She reflects sadly, feeling unheard by adults who seem uninterested in listening to her thoughts. In class, the focus remains on printed materials and exam preparation, with little room for discussion or personal input. Despite diligently studying in a coffee shop every morning, she faces criticism if she tries to express herself, leading her to stop trying. As her teacher continues to grumble, she leaves the staff room, and a peer mocks her for arriving late, sipping from a branded coffee. Ikuta responds playfully, but feels a sense of accomplishment for making progress while studying outside school. She believes this approach suits her better and proves more productive than being in class. A friend sarcastically remarks about her as a model student, implying that it's preferable to be teased for studying in the wrong place than getting reprimanded for it. Another peer encourages her to spend more time at cafes as well. Ikuta clarifies to her peers that she doesn't visit cafes just to hang out. Later, she suggests going to McDonald's with a friend and plans to organize hurdles after finishing up at their current location. They discuss a staff meeting, and she bids Ikuta goodbye, sharing an interesting tidbit about their homeroom teacher, Kobayashi-sensei, from high school. Fushimi recalls Kobayashi-kun being constantly late and skipping classes back then, finding it amusing that he's now a high school teacher. Ikuta understands, questioning the teacher's warning about regretting things later, hinting at the irony of his words based on his past behavior. In jest, Fushimi remarks that even someone like Kobayashi can become a bit of a worrier, hinting at the idea that everyone can change and become more serious over time. Just then, Koba arrives and bursts in angrily. The janitor casually assures him that she's not causing trouble. She addresses Koba as Kobayashi-sensei, redirecting the conversation to the idea of becoming a teacher. Ikuta asks Sensei's reference to the janitor, pointing out the potential rudeness in the remark. While walking away, Fushimi bids farewell and expresses a need to return to work, despite Koba's attempt to stop her. Later, Ikuta's friend inquires about the topic of gossip. She mentions that the janitor asked her to keep the conversation private between the two of them. Another friend enthusiastically joins the gossip, expressing admiration and love for the subject. Ikuta responds, suggesting that it might not be romantic love but something different. Her friend expresses admiration for Fushimi based on her appearance. The next morning, Ikuta wakes up and contemplates the idea of arriving at school on time while having breakfast. Her mother warns her that eating slowly will make her late. She leaves the house in a hurry, boarding the bus. Ikuta finds it challenging to be punctual due to the rush hour, regretting not considering the commute when choosing her school. While listening to music on the crowded bus, her phone and bag accidentally fall, causing irritation. A passenger, noting her alone, teases her, and despite being in shock, she catches him in the act. Seeing this, he asks for forgiveness, mentioning his family. A nearby police officer intervenes, praising the passenger for aiding in the capture of a criminal and commending his bravery. Taken to the police station for her statement, Ikuta, still startled, recounts the details about the criminal to the police officer. She expresses a sense of guilt for feeling bad about the criminal's family situation, but the officer disagrees, stating that sympathizing with a criminal isn't justified. Agreeing with the officer, she nods in understanding. The officer offers to drive Ikuta to the nearest train station, suggesting counseling if she needs someone to talk to, noting her apparent composure despite the situation. Eventually, the officer drops her off at the station, and Ikuta expresses her gratitude, hoping she won't need to ride in a police car again. The officer admires her bravery and wishes her a good day at school. Ikuta reflects that despite the unusual circumstances, she's still heading to school at the usual time, confident that she won't face any reprimands this time. She walks through the schoolyard, head held high when she spots Fushimi. They greet each other, a hint of awkwardness lingering in the air. As she continues toward class, Koba intercepts her, requesting a private talk in the guidance counseling room. Inside, he expresses concern for her well-being after the incident. He admires her bravery, but wants to ensure she's coping all right. Reaching her classroom, she is greeted by friends who inform her that class is about to begin. One friend inquires about her whereabouts, and Ikuta, brimming with excitement, declares she single-handedly apprehended a molester and handed him over to the police. The announcement sends shockwaves through the group. Her friend expresses disgust and despair at the state of society, praying for cleansing. One friend reveals her own experience with molestation, but admits she didn't try to confront the perpetrator. Ikuta asks her friend why she never spoke about her own experience. But the friend avoids the question, and instead lauds her as a hero. Emboldened, Ikuta enjoys the praise, even prompting another friend to jokingly call her a greedy hero. As she settles into class, the teacher playfully scolds her for her usual tardiness. At home, Ikuta faces a different reality. Her father, initially worried by the earlier police call, expresses relief that she wasn't much harmed. Her mother, however, is consumed by the details of the assault, asking with raw emotion where the molester touched her. Ikuta, overwhelmed and unwilling to relive the trauma, tries to deflect the question. This triggers her mother, who explodes in a mix of worry and frustration, lamenting her difficult nature. Her father, ever practical, focuses on legal ramifications and warns her about the dangers of fighting back against powerful individuals. He offers to arrange a lawyer's meeting to ensure her safety. Alone in her room, Ikuta searches the internet for information on what typically follows after someone is arrested for molestation. A few days later, she asks her father about the lawyer's discussion regarding the case. Her father explains that there was a settlement out of court amounting to 700,000 yen. Despite not being a substantial amount, he expresses relief, mentioning that it will be reported in the papers and that without this settlement, financing her higher education would have been challenging. In school, Koba discusses Ikuta's recent behavior with a colleague, noting her improved punctuality at school and increased participation in class discussions. The co-worker reflects on the unfortunate reality that sometimes distressing incidents like molestation serve as a wake-up call. Ikuta shares her concerns about the molester's target, being a girl barely older than his own daughter, with her friends, expressing worry about the young girl's well-being. Her friend acknowledges this, but mentions that she has repeated the concern many times before. Feeling dismissed, she walks away and bids goodbye to Fushimi when she sees her. Shortly after, Koba approaches, questioning if there's something wrong with Fushimi. Curious, she asks him if he's Ikuta's homeroom teacher and if anything happened to her. Though vague in response, he notes a change in her demeanor but expresses relief that she seems happier and no longer arrives late. In subsequent days, she greets the janitor as usual. One afternoon, she greets Fushimi, who notices her unusual behavior and distant expression. Concerned, she inquires about Ikuta's well-being and observes her teary reaction. Trying to console her, she encourages Ikuta to take a deep breath and offers options of visiting the infirmary or going back home, promising to inform the teacher promptly. She refuses the idea of going back, expressing frustration with how the police, teachers, and her parents perceive her actions, believing they underestimate her knowledge. She feels this has been a recurring issue with all the adults. Fushimi suggests talking to the janitor lady instead. Taking Ikuta to her office, she offers a break and pours her some tea, for which Ikuta expresses gratitude. The girl shares her routine, explaining that while she leaves home on time to avoid worrying her mother, she spends her mornings studying in cafes or similar places until noon. She criticizes the school's education system, mentioning the focus on handing out materials and textbook, studying without meaningful engagement. Additionally, she feels rebuked when she tries to concentrate on necessary subjects, finding adults uninterested in listening to her explanations. Consequently, she's given up on trying to communicate with them, as they dismiss her as rude or simply ignore her concerns. The other day, she confronted a molester all by herself, showcasing her bravery. However, when he began touching her, panic set in, and her mind went completely blank. She couldn't even hear the song playing in her earphones or any other sound. That particular song is now something she can't bring herself to listen to anymore. Amid this distressing situation, she considered making a scene to force the train to stop. Yet, the next stop happened to be the terminal, just 10 minutes away. Weighing the consequences of causing trouble for all the passengers on the train, she decided to be patient. The crucial moment arrived when the train doors opened, and she seized hold of the molester. Surprisingly, as the passengers exited the train, not a single person stopped or said anything. They simply looked at her and the molester as if they were inconveniencing them. Eventually, the train driver discovered them and called in the railroad police. Throughout this entire ordeal, she found herself alone with the molester, who wouldn't stop talking the entire time. When the police asked if there was anything else, she spoke her mind, but their reaction felt like they were invalidating her feelings. It seemed as if they were implying that her emotions were misplaced because his wife and daughter hadn't done anything wrong. She couldn't shake the terrible feeling she had for them, thinking about how his daughter's social life and exams might be affected because she was the daughter of a molester. But their response made her feel like she was somehow irrational for thinking that way. Despite offering to refer her to a counselor if needed, and acknowledging that she seemed to be holding up okay, it felt like the police officers didn't truly understand. Her teachers seemed disinterested in her well-being, and her parents lacked consideration for her feelings. Each one of them continued to emphasize how brave she was, but it didn't address the depth of what she felt. Facing constant praise for being brave, Ikuta finds herself struggling with how exactly she is supposed to respond. In an attempt to shield others from her worries, she puts on a tough facade. However, despite her efforts, everyone ends up saying the same thing. You can always go to an adult if you need help. The irony is not lost on her. Throughout the entire ordeal, adults have never truly listened to her. Ikuta acknowledges that the adults' intentions are likely rooted in genuine concern for her well-being. Despite this understanding, she can't shake the feeling of not being able to trust adults. She recognizes that their words are meant to express care, but the dissonance between their words and actions weighs heavily on her. Even though she is aware that harboring such feelings is not entirely justified, the emotional toll becomes overwhelming. She expresses a sense of frustration, apologizing for her emotional turmoil, and recognizing the complexity of her internal struggle. Fushimi replies with a smile, recognizing her sentiments. She continues, expressing her perception of adults. They act like they're listening, watching out, and understanding because that's what adults are expected to do. However, Fushimi doesn't put on any facade like that. She playfully touches her with chilled coffee and mentions having a stockpile of canned ones in her office, which Ikuta appreciates, though her eyes are swollen. She considers this kind of gesture to be fine, despite her emotional state. She ponders about Fushimi being an adult too, uncertain about what she thinks or whether she takes Ikuta seriously. Despite these uncertainties, she acknowledges that even though Fushimi is an adult, she's different, more genuine. She massages her forehead with the coffee can, finding it soothing. She tells Fushimi that it feels good and thanks her. Ikuta then stands up and peeks in the mirror to check her swollen eyes, hoping they appear better. Realizing that it's already the 6th period, she decides to head to class. Fushimi offers to accompany her and cover for her absence, suggesting she could say that they have been together since lunch. Ikuta considers this might be enough to conceal her lateness, but she denies the offer, asserting that she can handle it herself. Ikuta, in a thoughtful moment, asks Fushimi if she'd be willing to listen to her again sometime. The janitor responds with a smile, agreeing and encouraging Ikuta to come find her whenever she wants to talk. After bidding her goodbye, Ikuta walks away, heading towards her class. As she steps into her class, her friend confronts her about her lateness, surprised that she even showed up. Ikuta explains she arrived at lunch but spent the time until the 6th period having tea with the janitor. Her friend's reaction is one of disbelief, commenting on the fortunate aspect of having a cool beauty to cheer her up. Ironically, her friend was worried about Ikuta's recent strange behavior. Meanwhile, Fushimi recalls Ikuta's words while cleaning, reflecting on the lack of hope for the future according to Ikuta's perspective. There's a sense of isolation as Ikuta feels that there aren't any adults she can connect with or seek guidance from, aside from the parents and teachers. She longs for an adult figure who could make her feel less pessimistic about things. Just as she's lost in thought, a student calls out to her, referring to her as Miss Janitor. The following day, she grabs a canned coffee, and the day after, she's caught by a teacher sipping coffee alongside the janitor. Undeterred, she purchases coffee once more the next day, all while studying with her friends. One of them remarks on the futility of pulling all-nighters to study, suggesting that it leads to exhaustion and impairs test performance. Another friend questions Ikuta about her frequent consumption of drinks, wondering if they taste good. Ikuta responds, denying any late-night habits and clarifying that she hasn't been staying up late. The cheerful janitor, Fushimi-san, diligently works as the bell rings. Finding a peaceful spot to have her lunch, she settles down. Ikuta and her friend approach her, asking if they can join her for lunch. Welcoming them, the janitor lady invites them to share the space. Her friend excitedly mentions her lunch, mentioning leftover hamburger bits her mom packed. Ikuta, curious, asks Fushimi-san if she made her lunch or if perhaps a partner helped her. She reveals she made it herself and invites them to take a look. The meal appears brown and consists of fried ginger, egg furikake, simmered bamboo shoots, and a rolled omelet. They express surprise, suggesting it looks like something a boy would eat. She smiles, explaining that she needs a lot of calories and doesn't have much time to eat, hence opting for such a meal to fill up quickly. She gently urges them not to judge others' food choices. Feeling apologetic for their assumptions, they offer her carrots and asparagus as an apology. 3 boys dash towards the canteen, one of them remarking that they left late and the others brought their own lunch. Wanting to get ahead, they discuss their food choices, yakisoba sandwiches and curry buns. However, due to the crowded canteen, they find everything sold out except for one of the boys who managed to get his food. He taunts the others with a sarcastic bon appétit, angering them. One of them, wearing glasses, angrily tells him to leave and spouts harsh words, regretting it almost instantly. Another joins in, expressing frustration at nearly starving because of the situation. Mizuno Kusuke from Year 2, Class 4 in the basketball club reflects on the phrase, "go die." Whether being told, saying it, or hearing it, the phrase deeply disturbs him. He feels apprehensive about the casualness with which people use such a weighty phrase, concerned about the potential consequences if someone were to take it to heart. The idea of someone actually dying those words frightens him, and he worries about the immense burden and guilt it might carry if it ever came to pass. As Kusuke opens his lunchbox, a friend inquires if he prepares his own lunches, to which he nods affirmatively. The friend comments on the freedom to include favorite items, but Kusuke dismisses it, stating that he usually just adds leftovers from the previous night. Their conversation prompts a suggestion for their friend Aida to adopt the same approach. Aida, frustrated by the added ingredients in his lunch, vocalizes his dislike for tomatoes and wishes a choked lunch upon his friend. Aida then requests to see homework, met with a strong reaction and wishes for death from their friend. In response, he humorously considers taking that path, leading to a back-and-forth exchange about attending his funeral. Aida frustratedly says to kill him then. Kusuke finds the situation unpleasant. Later, Kusuke and his friend engage in cleaning their club, ensuring that it's tidy as per their instructor's request. During the cleaning, Aida expresses surprise at the cleanliness of a mop. He also discusses an upcoming match between the first and second years, worrying they might lose their starting spots against skilled opponents who have been playing since middle school. His friend laments the situation, expressing concern about their pride. Aida acknowledges that they've just begun playing in high school. The friend agrees, noting their lack of dedication to individual practice and doubting if the first years look up to them. His friends acknowledge Kusuke's experience, highlighting his skills. However, Kusuke downplays his abilities, warning that things could have been challenging if the senior players were present. He rebukes his friends for not taking things seriously. Suddenly, he receives a message from his father, stating he'll be late again, and requesting him to take care of dinner preparations. Upon arriving home, he expresses surprise, noticing a bowl of cookies, and questions his grandmother if she ordered more of those diet cookies. She denies making any purchases, suggesting they appeared on their own. He thinks they possibly came through a subscription order. He alerts Granny that dinner is prepared. She appears taken aback, questioning why he's eating something else when she was preparing dinner. He reassures her about handling his own meals before and in the future. He raises an observation, noting that her behavior is different when his father is present. This triggers Granny's irritation as she expresses frustration at the resemblance between Kosuke and someone else, criticizing his cooking style as too greasy for older individuals like herself. She warns him that if he doesn't improve, he'll face consequences. Later on, Granny emphasizes her role in covering his school fees and providing a place to live, insisting that he needs to improve. She expresses dissatisfaction over financial support, mentioning that his father didn't request anything, leaving her puzzled about his intentions. She raises her voice after observing Kusuke, questioning the reason behind his expression. Frustrated, she assumes he wishes for her demise, expressing her agitation aloud. Meanwhile, he privately reflects on how she thinks that he might genuinely harbor such thoughts. Despite her continued shouting, reminiscing about his behavior when he was younger. He stands up silently. She inquires about his sudden departure, concerned that the food will cool down. He calmly responds that he'll pack it for lunch the next day, dismissing the issue. He steps outside and settles on a bench when he hears his dad's familiar voice from the bike. His dad approaches, concerned, questioning Kosuke about dinner and whether he has eaten. Kosuke informs him that he's prepared dinner and his dad's portion is wrapped up, instructing him to heat it later at home. Then, his dad inquires about any trouble with Granny, expressing concern. He advises Kosuke, acknowledging Granny's intentions aren't harmful, but things don't work the same way as before when you get old and it can be challenging. He shares that sometimes certain things need to be endured, urging Kosuke to be patient with her. Reluctantly, he mentions the inevitability of Granny's passing and suggests allowing her some freedom in her actions for a while. Kosuke reflects on his dad's potential thoughts regarding the situation between him and Granny, considering that his dad might also assume that he desires her death. Despite Granny's verbal abuse, Kosuke has never wished harm upon her. Whenever he hears people casually say phrases like, "go die," it feels like a wave of death surging within him. He strongly believes that the regret of such words will be profound once someone actually passes away. He's afraid of death and doesn't wish it upon anyone. While he understands his dad's concern for Granny and the importance of tolerating certain situations, it doesn't diminish his fear of death. Listening to others' casual use of phrases like "school is killing me" or "I'm going to die," reflecting various daily problems, reinforces his fear and discomfort surrounding the concept of death. The next day at school, his friend urges him to head to the clubroom with a spirited "Hiya." Ida reminds him to properly warm up before practice. Curiously, he questions Kosuke's disposition, noting his seemingly distressed appearance, comparing it to that of a corpse, and humorously suggesting the possible reasons like a broken heart or morning constipation. Abruptly, he halts the conversation to ask why they use phrases like "die" without consideration, expressing concern about feeling responsible if something were to happen to him. Their reaction escalates to alarm, wondering if he's unwell or dealing with an issue. His friend tries to ease the situation, mentioning that it's all in jest, nothing too serious. They jokingly inquire if he also finds it amusing, chuckling and explaining it's a long-standing Kansai tradition, chanting "die" as a pastime. Fushimi, who's cleaning nearby, startles upon hearing the playful banter, particularly the exclamation of the specific word. She's struck by the unexpected jest. His friend jokingly points out her reaction, suggesting even the janitor is joining in on the playful spirit. Ida teases, suggesting she's impressively good at playing dead and considers recording it for TikTok. However, as she remains down, their worry grows, and they consider seeking help, debating whether it's their fault. Concerned about Fushimi's state, they rush to find a teacher or someone to assist. When they bring the nurse, she's visibly alarmed, asking if everything's okay, running toward Fushimi's direction. Meanwhile, Fushimi, now sitting, addresses the nurse, surprised at the sudden influx of people, and apologizes sincerely for causing worry. The nurse explains the severity of the situation to the janitor, highlighting the panic the kids were in, and she almost resorted to calling an ambulance. Fushimi expresses genuine regret for her actions. The nurse emphasizes the relief that nothing serious occurred, but stresses the anxiety caused to the kids. She assures the nurse it won't happen again, and apologizes while bowing, expressing regret for causing worry. The nurse addresses the group, offering support if anyone remains upset and suggesting they speak to the school counselor or visit her office. She disperses them, advising them to return to their clubs or head home. Kosuke considers that the janitor might have overheard their conversation and intended to playfully startle them, viewing it as a minor incident that doesn't require much attention. His friend Aida urges them to leave. Meanwhile, Fushimi reflects, feeling responsible for the situation, thinking she should have ignored the comments and hopes to make amends later on. Kosuke and his friends are in the boys' locker room discussing the recent incident. Aida expresses his concern, feeling disturbed by what happened. Another friend approaches Kosuke, expressing regret for not realizing earlier that the situation bothered him. He apologizes as well, acknowledging that he's been dealing with a lot lately and shouldn't have reacted that way. Aida tries to lift their spirits, suggesting they focus on something positive by motivating each other. On the playground, Fushimi approaches the group playing and requests a moment to talk. Aida warmly greets her, inquiring if she needs anything or if she's doing okay after the earlier incident. Their friend, curious, asks for the name of the one with glasses, who hesitantly responds as Achiha-kun. She reassures him that none of what happened earlier was his fault and that she was just trying to playfully scare them. She ensures that everything's fine now. Achiha confirms that all is good. She casually mentions her Kyoto roots, attributing her behavior to the Kansai style. She expresses her apology again, but Achiha reassures her that it's not an issue. Kusuke privately finds the janitor rather attractive. She remarks on the situation being refreshing and bids them a good day. Kusuke apologizes again and agrees with her sentiment. Fushimi heads to the nurse's office. Upon examining her, the nurse remarks, "Oh, your elbow's hurt." She responds with a smile, acknowledging that she might have overexerted herself a bit. She sees it as a valuable lesson learned from the incident. The nurse, surprised, questions her, "Are you stupid or what?" As she's leaving, the nurse adds, "If you want to wash up, come by the infirmary." Fushimi nods appreciatively in agreement. Fushimi is a tall figure. She emerges from the storage room after fixing something and addresses the children outside, offering to put the hurdle back in the PE storage. A kid requests to take it and thanks her for the help, amazed at how brand new it looks. Izumi Minami, a member of the track and field club from Year 1, Class 1, asks her sister, Mitsuki from Year 2, Class 4, about her plans for the day, suggesting a stop for milk tea on their way home. She agrees to the milk tea plan, but questions if the star of the track team should be drinking something so sugary. She justifies it as a treat to maintain her energy and wishes her sister well for her shift at work. Minami encourages her sister, wishing her the best too. Mitsuki privately believes that the janitor could benefit from a morale boost and silently wishes her well, sending a message of encouragement. Fushimi reciprocates the good wishes and bids the girl a good shift at work, prompting her to smile. Mitsuki works as a barista at a cafe, as she greets customers with a smile. She then approaches her senior, requesting assistance with a customer who has been sitting with just water for 2 hours. However, her senior encourages her to handle it herself, suggesting it would be good practice. Though hesitant, Mitsuki expresses reluctance to handle the situation alone and hopes for help if it becomes difficult. She attempts to assist the customer by asking if he's ready to order and offering to help him at the register. However, the customer becomes aggressive, accusing her of insinuating trouble. He lashes out with complaints about student part-timers. In that instant, her senior steps in, trying to diffuse the tension, and then extends a gesture of goodwill by offering to buy Mitsuki, who is visibly pouting, a drink as a way of acknowledging her endurance through the situation. Minami arrives at the shop, calling out excitedly to her sister and placing her order. She remarks on Mitsuki's busy schedule lately and expresses her longing for their dinners together. Her friend acknowledges her deep affection for her sister, prompting Mitsuki to thank them for joining her. When Mitsuki returns home from work, her mother asks her to buy more garbage bags, prompting her frustration as she just arrived and hasn't even set her bag down yet. She points out her sister Nami playing games and questions the disparity. However, her mother reminds her that Nami is exhausted from her club activities and it's risky for her to be out at night. She mentions Mitsuki's frequent late returns and highlights that both she and her sister are putting in effort. Mitsuki emphasizes her hard work and independence, pointing out that she holds a job and doesn't rely on an allowance. Her mother acknowledges Mitsuki's job, but notes that it's more of a gig for students and suggests that if she pays bills, she's free to complain. This leads to an argument about responsibilities at home. Mitsuki reluctantly agrees to buy the bags, asking for cash, which her mother criticizes as lacking niceness and possibly a phase of rebellion. Mitsuki defends her decision to save money and use the change for ice cream, prompting her younger sister, Minami, to join in. Their mother expresses frustration at their free-spirited nature. When they were heading back, Minami comments that Mitsuki seemed a bit awkward in handling certain situations. She replied, acknowledging Nami's growing ability to speak candidly. In their bedroom at night, Mitsuki inquires if Nami feels stressed due to recent events. She affirms that it does stress her out. Mitsuki assures her it's fine to turn off the lights if she prefers. As Minami falls asleep, Mitsuki reflects on her sister's admirable qualities, being cute, hardworking, and excelling in her club, an embodiment of the idealized youth. This starkly contrasts with Mitsuki's perception of herself, feeling inadequate in academics, sports, and creativity. She recognizes that, from an adult's perspective, she might appear to be coasting along without any particular strengths worth praising. In the morning, Mitsuki inquires if Minami has morning practice, to which she responds negatively. They prepare breakfast, and their mother joins, apologizing for oversleeping and offering pizza toast. Minami shares her plans to hang out with friends later, asking Mitsuki about her work schedule. She confirms she has a full shift that day. Their mother then questions Mitsuki about her work schedule and friends, hinting about boys at her workplace and advising her not to get sloppy. Mitsuki, offended, questions her mother's insinuations and decides to leave the situation. As she pedals to her shift on her bicycle, she warmly invites her customer inside, ready to take their order. Spotting the customer, she recognizes her as the school janitor. Wondering whether the janitor recognizes her or not, she decides not to make a big deal out of it. She proceeds to ask Fushimi if she will be dining in or taking away her order. She places an order for a hot coffee and an avocado wrap to go. Mitsuki hands her the bill and assures that the order will be ready at the counter soon. Meanwhile, Fushimi plans her afternoon tasks, thinking about watering the plants on the grounds and mowing the grass. Mitsuki prepares the order and hands it to the janitor lady. Upon leaving the shop, Fushimi notices something written on the cup. "Miss Janitor, thanks for all your hard work." Observing Fushimi's reaction, her senior remarks on her exceptional smile and quick movement. Curiously, he asks Mitsuki about it, expressing interest in meeting her. She teasingly responds, hinting at knowing her, but jests about setting someone up with a high schooler. Later, as she arrives home, she feels a bit uneasy seeing her mom drinking, anticipating it might make the evening more challenging than usual. She inquires about Minami, wondering if she's already in her room. Her mom suggests checking there, noting her seemingly cheerful mood. Mitsuki shares her experience about a schoolmate who visited the cafe and received a special message on their cup, mentioning how surprisingly happy it made them feel. She reflects on feeling content after starting her job. Her mom responds, reminding her of the sacrifices and challenges she faced raising both girls, highlighting her own deferred desires and hard work. She expresses concern that Mitsuki might be overly worked up about a job that's not as demanding as real-world work, suggesting her that it might have an idealistic view of labor. After school, Minami is at practice and dashes towards her sister, who came by and queries Mitsuki about her work schedule. She confirms her day off, mentioning she's just passing time before heading home. She encourages Minami, advising her to stay focused and keep up the good effort. On her way, she encounters Fushimi and inquires about her activities. Fushimi mentions her dedication to work, prompting Mitsuki to offer her assistance. As they clean, Mitsuki inquires about Fushimi's responsibilities as a janitor. Fushimi explains her role, mentioning tasks such as inspecting and repairing equipment, managing grounds, and often patrolling the area. Mitsuki wonders about Fushimi's qualifications for tasks like electrical work, to which she responds that she handles various odd jobs beyond her primary duties, including paperwork and making tea. Mitsuki reflects on the various challenges everyone faces and wonders if most people truly dislike working. Despite being a kid, she finds her job quite enjoyable. Curious, she asks Fushimi if she likes her job as a janitor. She responds positively, expressing her enjoyment of the job and finding fulfillment in the visible results of her hard work. They finish cleaning, satisfied with their work. Fushimi acknowledges to Mitsuki that it seems like she's found a pleasant place to work. While appreciating her assistance, Fushimi asks for her hand and uses a washable marker to write something on it, ensuring Mitsuki not to worry about it being easily removable. Fushimi excitedly shows Mitsuki her response, mentioning she was genuinely thrilled about it and even made it her lock screen. Mitsuki, a bit embarrassed, comments on how far Fushimi went with her gesture, acknowledging it as a significant morale boost. In response, Fushimi shouts cheerfully, expressing the enthusiasm to do their best together. Mitsuki smiles and assures the janitor lady that she'll give it her all too.
Here I am, know it's been a while. I was in denial about my love. Here I stand, I know I walked away.